Hi, my name is Paige, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about how you can manage student engagement and integrity in online learning as a professor new to online teaching. So first I want to begin about talking about engagement in an online setting, specifically about the difficulties. So online learning is fairly new to everybody, and there's been significant problems about engagement. As a student myself, I find it's much easier to disengage in classes that are online, specifically if they are asynchronous classes where there's no face-to-face meeting. Having a lack of engagement in a class is a problem because even if students are getting the grades that they want, they're not getting the knowledge and they're not connecting the concepts, which is the entire point of the class. So one technique that you can use in order to increase engagement with students is the use of scaffolding. So scaffolding is a technique of breaking assignments or the class into smaller parts in order to create essentially checkpoints for students, checkpoints similar to what you would have in an actual classroom that's not online. So these are going to allow for a closer facilitation of the learning process. Students aren't going to be able to just get the assignment, come back a week later, turn it in. They're going to be able to check in a little bit more. It's not going to feel so disconnected, and you're going to build a better relationship with your students. This is also going to increase students' morality and persistence. If students feel that they've kind of been given this giant assignment and then just left to do it themselves with no further checking in or help, even if they're perfectly capable of doing the assignment, if it's not a hard assignment, they're still going to feel discouraged and they're going to feel alone. So by using scaffolding and adding in some more checkpoints and some more engagement, professor-student engagement, you're going to increase that morality and persistence. And along with that, you're going to improve your student's perspective of the course. Now, a student's perspective of the course depends on many things. And if we're being real, not all of them are actually how well the course was taught. Students often enjoy easy courses, but most importantly, they enjoy courses where they feel like they learned something and they feel like they got some sort of connection from it. So with the scaffolding and the breaking apart of assignments into smaller pieces, you're going to allow for students to create those connections for themselves and therefore improve their perspective of the course. So a few techniques for scaffolding. The first one is going to be assessing and posting on discussion boards daily or as often as you can. Discussion boards are a great tools used by a lot of professors in online classes and even in in-person classes as well. And often as a student, I've noticed that professors will say, okay, post your discussion board today or this week and respond to other classmates, which is great. And that is really helpful to hear those different perspectives from other students. But it can be a bit isolating to the students if the professor's just saying, okay, do this, and then I'm not going to engage with it at all. In a typical in-person classroom, this would be kind of similar to if a professor were to, ask if there's any questions, and then they spend their time answering those questions and going through it. That is basically the in-person equivalent of these online discussion boards. Now, another scaffolding technique is focusing on learner-instructor interactions. So even if that's just saying that you want your students to send you a progress email every week if they're working on a really big assignment, just having some sort of assignment or requirement where you're engaging individually with students is going to really help them feel more engaged with the course overall. Now, a third scaffolding technique is a little bit different, but it's providing feedback immediately. Now, obviously, immediately is relative, but within an appropriate timeline. And this isn't necessarily grading assignments, but more just sharing your thoughts. From a student's perspective, if I'm in an in-person class and I raise my hand and answer a question, I can tell before the professor even responds to me if I was off or if I was spot on, just based on their facial expressions, based on their general reaction. And in an online class, you don't necessarily get that. So people may not know that they're way off base or that they're doing really well as soon as they would in an in-person class. So by providing feedback immediately, that can take form in a ton of different ways. even if that's just, you know, grading fast is always a good way to stay engaged with your students. But even if it's just like acknowledging that a student has turned something in or something like that, just let students know that they're on the right track right away. And if they're not on the right track, they know before they feel like they're way too far behind, they can't do anything about it. Ultimately, all of these scaffolding techniques are focusing on making social interaction easier in the online class because engagement does suffer the most when social interaction in a class is challenging, like it is in an online class. So now moving on to some group work to promote engagement. So group work, if done correctly, promotes constructive and interacting learning methodologies. Now there's 4 main learning methodologies: passive, active, constructive, and interactive. As you go through that list of learning methodologies, you go into more complex understanding of the material. Most of the time, students can do the passive and the active learning methodologies. That's the immediate recall, maybe like fill in the blank type of thing. But constructive and interactive really come in when a student is able to teach a concept or explain a concept to another student or apply that concept to a separate topic. And group work is a great point where you can kind of introduce those challenging problems in because they're able to work in a group and develop those learning methodologies. And when you have someone that's able to not only know the concepts in class but explain them to another person, you're really going to boost their engagement in that class. Now, I also want to look at the achievement outcomes. So group work has been proven to increase confidence in academics, specifically in underrepresented minority groups. Now, this is specifically talking about increasing confidence, not necessarily results, but those do have a pretty strong correlation. Not many students are going to be willing to get up in front of an entire class and answer a question that they're not sure about or take a chance on something if they're not 100% sure. But when given the opportunity to do that in a smaller group work setting, more students are going to be able to take that, and that's going to gradually increase their confidence in the class, which will definitely help boost their engagement in the class. So now moving on to student integrity. Now, online learning has no doubt impacted student integrity across the board. There's more freedom and less accountability. So how can we kind of combat that and ensure that our students are still maintaining a high academic standard in our classes online? So group work and integrity. So the group environment is a significant factor in a student's integrity. We've already established that group work is good for boosting engagement, but how does it impact the integrity aspect of it? There's a couple things within a group that impact a student's personal integrity as well as the group integrity. And the first is the psychological safety within a group. One issue with students being able to choose their own groups is that they'll often feel very psychologically safe because they've chosen their friends. They feel very comfortable and they feel safe to voice their opinions, which is a good thing. But it also means that they may feel more safe to introduce the idea of maybe being dishonest with an assignment because they feel comfortable with how the group members are going to react. And they feel like the group members would be comfortable going along with that. So that's one benefit of assigning random groups is you reduce the chance of a group feeling that psychologically safe to kind of voice those dishonest or negative opinions. The second is individual expectations. If someone is placed in a group and their initial review of the rest of the group is that, yeah, like everybody else here is going to cheat. And so if I don't cheat, then I'm doing myself a disservice. So in order to manage those individual expectations, we want to make sure that in independent work that everybody is maintaining a high standard of academic honesty so that when you get into those group settings, you don't have that preset expectations of people within those students. Now, the third thing is going to be the power dynamic of the group. When you have groups that have a super strong leader, that can be a good thing in order to boost productivity, but it can also be difficult for those less dominant voices to voice their opinion out against that dominant leader. So one way that we can kind of combat that is by having like group reviews where people are given a chance to review their group members without those group members seeing those reviews, so that people feel like they have a way to safely express their opinions without having to go directly opposing the group leader, as you would say. So that's a little bit about how, as online teachers in an online classroom environment, we can use strategies to help boost engagement as well as ensure